Good morning, Mr. Pia. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me today to share your. Oh, wait, let me restart. That was not too good. Okay. All right. Um,
Loosey,
what?
loosey goosey. Doesn't make it if you could
Yeah.
always.
All right. Oop. Good morning, Mr. Pia. Thank you for taking a moment to interview with me today and share your insights and expertise on your business. Before we dive into questions, do you want to give us a bit of background on your career history?
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name is Christopher Lewis Pia, and I am the chairman and CEO of Pia Capital Management, which is now a private family office, but originally started as a investment management firm that had over $1 billion worth of assets at its peak, and that was founded in 2010. And now it is a family office that is just dealing with family private investments, real estate, stock market, commodity markets, and farming and agri-tainment.
Great, great. And do you want to share a bit about what motivated you to start your own business back in 2010?
Yes, I would. That's a good question. Well, I was on Wall Street for since I graduated college. I was an intern before I graduated college on the commodities floors, which commodities are gold, silver, copper, palladium, corn, wheat, cocoa, anything you can imagine that would trade on an exchange. I was in those markets as an intern. So I learned a lot of the business from the ground floor up, understanding hedging of things. If there's coffee coming out of Brazil or gold coming out of South Africa, uh, there are people that own this product that want to hedge things. So that my first foray into the markets was the commodity markets in terms of hedging. How do people defray their risk in terms of what they own? So I did that for 4 years during college. I used to go after school. After my college classes, I would go down and settle up the end of the day for a lot of these brokers on the floor. And that's how I fell in love with the markets. Then I graduated and I fell into a good opportunity with an investment management firm and one of the largest and first hedge funds ever to come about. And I worked for that firm for 20 years. And I ended up at my height, I was a partner in the firm. I was on the board of directors, and it was a very successful and lucrative, but very rewarding, most importantly, rewarding business. After 20 years, I wanted to have what's known as your name on the door. So I spun off and I started my own investment management firm called Pia Capital Management. And that was in 2011. And I kept that going to this day right now. We used to have investors. We no longer have investors because with the regulatory environment, it's better that I manage my own money. I don't have to have investors to ask questions and things like that. So it's a better and easier way of life to manage your own investments, and I'm very fortunate I'm able to do that for myself and my family.
Great, great. And what role has networking and building relationships gone into you starting up your own business,
Well,
Pia Capital Management?
Pia Capital Management, that's a good question pertaining to Pia Capital. When I left my previous firm, uh, it was named More Capital Management, and that was a very large uh, firm that had 500 investors, and they all invested in this product, and they were looking to make money, like a mutual fund or a stock. And we would trade everything under the sun, including commodities, stocks, bonds, anything, foreign exchange, anything that was that moved up and down in the markets, and that really moved macroeconomics in the world. Uh, After I did the 20-year career there, then my networking over the previous 20 years had a good database of investors that wanted to come with me because they knew of my track record, they knew of my performance, they knew of my strengths. One of my strengths is not fixed income, which is bonds and things like that. But my strengths are commodities and stocks, which are equities. So my networking throughout the years of speaking at conferences and speaking to investors at my previous firm, they knew when I spun off that I would be a good fit if they wanted to be in my strengths. And that's how I went to them when I spun off from my previous firm. I went to them and I said, I'm starting this new company. You've known me for many years. We've networked, we've been together, we've gone for dinners, or we've gone to conferences. I've spoken at conferences. If you'd like, you can invest in my firm. And that's how Pia Capital was formed.
Nice. And the relationships that you built while at More Capital Management, do you believe that that benefited you into catapulting your own business, Pia Capital Management?
100%, Lucas. That was the primary reason. Prior to that, I had it was a very nice career that I had going, and I had a very good, what's known as a track record. I was very good at what I did, and people would always say, if you ever go on your own, you should go on your own. The other company is too big, and it was a very successful firm, and it was a wonderful firm, but a lot of people and many investors want to do something called a bespoke trading. They want to be more micro organized as opposed to macro organized, and you'll find out about that later. But that was one of the reasons that I spun off, was so many people were asking me to, in addition to wanting to spend more time with my family, having my own name on the door, having my own employees, being the person that I only answered to one person and not a board of directors and investors and things like that. I had a different subset investors who knew me personally and trusted me to bring them forward.
So in relation to Pia Capital Management, how did you deal with competition?
Competition was in my space. That's the term called in the commodities and currencies, world currencies. There wasn't a lot of competition for someone like me because I had what's known as a track record. My previous 20 years trading with More Capital Management led me to really build up a name for myself and a trustworthy person that you can stay with one firm for 20 years and be successful. So when I spun off the competition, I immediately raised significant amounts of capital where I had to close, what's known as closing, where I didn't take any more new capital on, especially if the person did not know me from my previous organization.
Okay. I'm gonna need a second after that one. Do you think it's bad so far, though? You think it's fine so far?
I think it's great so far.
Okay.
Get into hurdles, things like that.
I'm trying to ask you like smaller questions about, because I'm supposed to have like
difficulties, hurdles, getting into your career, things like that. One of those questions was in there like that. Obstacles, any obstacles?
Yeah. Okay. Ready? So, Mr. Pia, in the early stages of Pia Capital Management, what challenges did you face?
Well, the challenges that arose for me originally emanated from my previous 20-year career, which kind of set the stage for my Pia Capital Management phase. I was, again, as I mentioned before, I was working on the floors in the summer as a intern through college, and I was very good at what I was doing down on the floors. However, I didn't have what was known as the pedigree that a lot of Wall Street people had. I went to Baruch College, and I was with the intern program that many kids and the people that worked on the floors went to Harvard and Yale and Princeton, and I didn't have that pedigree. I knew in my heart and in my mind, I knew more than them because I was working on the floors and I knew my drive and I had the passion to that I loved this business. Everybody else really were just taken from a pool of Harvard interns and Yale interns and Princeton interns, and my father was a middle manager and then a senior manager in this firm, and it was called Lehman Brothers, and he got me in the pool with the more highly recognizable colleges. So I felt fortunate, even though they may not thought it was fortunate, because I knew that I was better than them, and they had a good. They may have had a better school at the top of their resume, but I knew I had better passion than they had.
All right, going back to your family and your father, do you think your father influenced you to follow your dreams, especially in a situation with people who had a higher pedigree than you?
That's a great question. I do think that my father had a major influence in my success and my decision-making process into being more entrepreneurial and wanting to take the reins for myself. My father was a mid to upper level manager of the back office operations for a commodity department, and that's how I knew the commodity market was from him, from the operations level up. He used to teach me at home about what he did and what I could do, so that when I went to the trading floors during college, he didn't say, come and work with me in the accounting department. He said, I want to send you to the trading floors to look at the revenue department. This is where the money is made. This is where people are hedging products and saving money and making money in these different commodities. And I already knew how the math was done. So when I went to the floors to learn that, that was really the edge that I had. I knew what it meant. As soon as something was bought and sold, I knew what happened the next step and the step after that. So then when I learned how to make the money, I was really had the full circle, and I really knew what I wanted to do. I had the passion to really love the revenue side of the area, investing, reading a newspaper, and seeing what's going to happen tomorrow in gold, what's going to happen in the economy, what's going to happen with civil unrest somewhere. How would it affect certain markets? How would it affect wheat if there's a fire in Kansas? How would it affect the copper prices if there was a earthquake in Chile? Those are the things that, it's bad to say it didn't excite me, because if there was loss of life, I didn't like that. However, to be the first one investing in something, whether something good happens or something bad happens, unfortunately, is really what gave me my edge.
All right, that's a great response. Stock trading can definitely be a very unpredictable career path. How did you manage risk and make decisions that would profit and benefit your business?
That is one of the reasons that I was a very good and voracious reader. I since college, maybe not so much in high school, but since college, I really geared myself, and I knew what I wanted to do. And I wanted my passion to become my profession. And if those two things are in line, really, the obstacles go away. Because if you're not worried about making money, you're just worried about doing what you love, the money will come. And that's true in any business, in any career. There were certain businesses that I loved, especially the commodity markets business and the equity markets, the stock markets, and companies, and understanding things like how earnings drive down into the stock price, and that really derived from my reading, and that gave me the stepping stones to really what I love reading about history. There's a few books that when I speak to high school kids and college kids at my old college that I always recommend. And they always ask, what books do you want to read? I want to be like you, or I want to do this. And I give them a few books. And it's these books stay with you through your whole life. and it, just like a professor will stay with you through your whole life. If you bond with a certain professor in college, that professor, you will hear him on your shoulder saying things about motivation or about this or about a career move. So I think that is really what I would recommend the most. And I don't know if I answered your question with that, but it triggered me to think about reading and relationships.
No, you totally answered my question, that you gave some great insight there. So if we move a little bit forward on into your life, I know you have a very large family. How did you manage to balance a work-life relationship while also working such long hours? And would
Well,
you also take a moment to describe your family life? And
well, I have five beautiful children. I have four boys and a girl. My only daughter is tied for the top uh, of the age chain, and they range from 28 down to my youngest son Lucas, who is close to being 18 years old. Um, but one of the reasons, the primary reason that I decided to go on my own was because I wanted to be closer to home and I wanted to have more time to spend with my family. Spending 2 hours commuting from backcountry Greenwich, Connecticut into Manhattan every day for 20 years took a real toll on my family life, missing baseball games, missing church events, missing things like that. So I really wanted to spend more time with my family. So, and I knew I had the talent and the wherewithal to do that. So I founded Pia Capital Management, and I leased office space 3 miles from my home, so I could drop my kids off at school before heading to the office. I could be home in 10 minutes. I could go watch a few baseball games without missing up on meetings and my reading and world events.
all right, so keeping on the topic of challenges, besides obviously wanting to maintain a family life, what other challenges did you face later on in your career after leaving More Capital?
Well, there were significant challenges then because there was a few crises then. So I left More. There was during the financial crisis, and decided to start Pia right as the financial crisis was at its low. So it was a very difficult and trying time to raise money. But thankfully, I had a good career and a track record that was audited by a very reputable accounting firm, and I was able to raise the significant funds and really start investing in what I had strengths with at the bottom of the market, at the bottom of a cycle. So, there's cycles, there's ups and downs in every market. I got out of, and I decided to start Pia Capital Management and lead More Capital Management at a top. And then it took me a year to get the paperwork done. And then when I received the okay to start trading, it was at a bottom. So the timing, the gods were in favor of that timing. And we were ready to go. So that gave us a significant boost. Our first 2 years of Pia Capital, which tended to increase our capital base, and I was able to hire very, very talented people to work with me, research analysts and traders and things like that were really helpful to me in building my original career, because the world got a lot smaller after that.
Great. And before you mentioned something about the ups and downs of your career path, do you mind elaborating on some of the ups and downs that you experienced throughout your time at Pia Management?
Well, there were equally ups and downs in every part of your career, and that's what a career makes, is ups and downs. You got to stay motivated, and you got to go back to your basics. You got to go back to those books that you loved, and the professors that you cared about, and that gave you sage-like advice, and your parents that gave you good advice. And that's what I did. So there was many financial crises. September 11th was one of them. It was the worst day in American history. I was in an office looking in a meeting on 50th Street, and the only view that we had was of the Twin Towers. And watching that first, I thought it was a helicopter, ended up being the first plane. When I saw that happen, and I won't make this a history lesson, when I saw that happen, the world changed, and the world changed, and that was in the middle of my career at More Capital Management, and I looked at the world through a different prism after that. Everything became easier after that, because you were fortunate enough not to be down at the World Trade Center. And then I realized what's most important, your family and your faith and things like that. And it's not about the career and the money, and things slow down. You see things more clearly in that respect. And that was the biggest down of my career. And then then everything else was icing on the cake, because I became a better father, a better businessman, a better use of time I used, and it was a very interesting time. And and then there were ups, because I was known as never having a down year, ever. Not even in 2001 with the World Trade Center, because again, what happens in times of crises, Mr. Pia? Crises. I was always I was always owning gold and metals. In times of crises, those things go up. So whereas stocks go down because there's bad stuff going on, everybody moves to safety, and everybody moves to less risky assets. And what's the least risky asset is gold. And of course, I was a very large gold trader, and that, even during September 11th, I didn't trade at all, because everybody just took a step back to care for the loss that the country was going through. But we did okay. And then and then from then on, it was always more news oriented based on that. Then there was a war in Afghanistan, and there was different types of cycles. There was recessions and recoveries and things like that affect my business.
That's a really valuable experience, Mr. Pia. I heard you mention that you were big on trading in gold. How did you identify your sort of target market, and how did you use that to reach and engage with consumers?
Okay, so yes, so the consumers for me were my investors, and the reason they invested in me is because I was what was known as a commodities trader, and more predominantly a metals trader. So copper, aluminum, zinc, gold, silver, platinum, palladium, things like that were my forte. Mm-hmm. So there was always a reason, without whatever cycle you were in, there was always a reason to invest with me, I felt. Because, for instance, say we're in a recovery, interest rates are very low. There's a need for housing because mortgage rates are low. That will normally send copper prices higher, because copper prices are reflective of, to build a house, you need a lot of copper, you need a lot of lumber, which is also a tradable commodity. You need, you need many things. So if there's an upcycle, you could, I'll make a person like me will make money in copper, aluminum, zinc, lumber. And then when there's lower prices and there's stock market gains, people tend to consume more grains and cereals and things like that, and that would help wheat and corn and things like that. And then when things go bad, people go to the precious metals and they invest in things like gold for protection, silver for protection, and things like that.
Great. That is very valuable. Thank you so much. Later on in your career, I know that you invested in some property on the North Fork of Long Island. Could you delve into that a little bit for us, please?
Excellent. Very nice segue. The North Fork of Long Island is really where I believe my home is. And I found it about 23 years ago. And and from that point on, I invested heavily. It was right after a good year in the stock market, and we were looking for a summer home, and it wasn't the Hamptons. You know, most people in New York go to the Hamptons for the summer. It's where the city people go, and I did not like the hustle and bustle of the Hamptons because it felt like Manhattan in the summer. But I found this place called the North Fork of Long Island, where everything was more laid back. There was more farms. People were farmers, actual farmers, and people were actual stonemasons, and that's what their businesses were. And you know, I was looking for a summer home, and we found one, and it was very nice, and it was a beautiful place on the water, and we bought it, and then we ended up selling that house and buying another place on the water, which was even nicer. We loved that. And then, you know, I was a very big hunter at that time, a bow hunter, and I was looking for a farm to hunt on, bird hunt, things like that. And I found this piece of property which had 50 apple trees on it, and it was perfect for hunting, perfectly what we needed it for, but we didn't need a home. So what I kept doing was every year I'd plant 500 apple trees over the years, and now we have over 4,000 apple trees on that orchard. Now it's not a farm anymore; it's an orchard. And then we decided that we needed to at least, you know, open this beautiful place up to the community and maybe try to make a profit on it, because I was not into hunting as much anymore, and my children didn't take to it as much as I thought they would. So we started doing apple picking, and we started making cider donuts, and I bought a pressing facility, and I started pressing the apples into apple cider and things like that. And that was very, very profitable and very nice, except it was demanding on the land. And then it was a beautiful property, and my wife and I wanted to open it up for other people, not just friends, to see it. So we started doing weddings there. We started having all sorts of weddings, and there were waterfront weddings because the farm went from the road to the water, and it was a beautiful place. We had beautiful animals. We even had a llama. We had horses. We now have pigs, and it's become a passion for my family and I. And we're doing weddings, and we're finding that the wedding space, especially after COVID-19, the wedding space has been a very, very profitable aspect for all people that have farms and orchards and vineyards as well. Where we are out in the North Fork, there are many, many vineyards, and they're all just starting to make money. And it's not only from the wine selling, it's also from the weddings. Although I feel like we have the best wedding venue out there.
Well, Mr. P, it sounds like you've had a very successful life story. Because of that, do you have any advice that you would give to any aspiring entrepreneurs or traders who are looking to start their own businesses of their own and maybe venture out of their original area, like you left more capital to start PM management?
I do actually. You know, most importantly, because I have spoken to young people before, and I do think it's great, and you guys are at a perfect age to think about it. You don't have to make any decisions, but whatever you do, love what you do. You have to have the passion for what you do. If you don't love what you do, you're never going to be successful at it. And I don't mean success by money. I just mean success by ease of soul. Unless my children asked me or begged me to go on Wall Street, I kind of told them, I do not want you on Wall Street, because that was my passion. So I don't want anybody, when I go to speak at a college or I speak at a high school, I tell them, I go around the room, who wants to speak? You know, oh yes, what do you want to do for a living? Oh, I want to be like you. I want to be on Wall Street. That's not the right answer. Whatever you do, you have to do it well, and you have to love what you do. And that's the moral to the story. And if you could just find your passion and find a job associated with your passion, and then your passion becomes your profession, you will have success in life. And lastly, because I knew this question would come up, I believe that I'll just give you one book. I have 5 in my head that I make all of my sons read. But for this interview, since it's going on national television, I will just give one book. And it's this book right here, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And the rich part is not necessarily money. It could be money, but it's not necessarily money. Okay. And it's a wonderful book by Napoleon Hill. It's been around since the early 1900s. And I recommend everybody reads the book. And if you ever want to discuss it, I'm around.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Pia, for talking with me today and giving us your valuable insight. I think everybody could get takeaways from this interview and learn a lot from you and learn about entrepreneurship and trading. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And
thank you so much, Mr. Pia. Thank you so much. And you were a wonderful interviewer.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.